two different cases, so I'm just going to go ahead and present this, both cases as one, but just to remind y'all that y'all need to vote on them separately. So the first case is HC 23-02-09, Commercial 201 Carroll Exterior Changes Gable Change. And then the second case is HC 230526 with the 4 window replacements. So the applicant owns Lot 10A located in Square 25B on the corner of Carroll Street and Claiborne Street. The applicant is applying for installing pediment molding and replacement of 4 upper windows. The structure is listed on the Historic District Survey as being rated contributing, with the construction date being around 1907. The property measures 90 by 93, and the property is zoned B3 Old Mandeville Business District. You can see here, this is the site plan that was submitted. And I provided some photos of the existing structure. So that was the front elevation, the side elevation, the rear. So of the first proposal is the pediment molding. So the applicant did turn in some information that I'm just going to go ahead and read to you his statement. This matter came up for consideration at the February 2nd, 2023 meeting, at which the time the Historic Preservation District Commission recommended installation of pediment molding upon removal of the cantilever offset fascia boards on the gables in lieu of replacing the fascia boards. In agreement with the Commission's recommendation, the applicant proposes to install 5-inch tall by 5-inch deep ridge closed cell expanded EPS foam pediment board having a 1.5 per pound per square foot density that is custom made to match a corresponding element of the original dental work. And it will have a polyurethane hard coat and UV protection. So you can see this is the profile photo of the dental element to be replicated and the photo of the replacement area. He did provide the data sheets of the material. So that is the first case of what he's proposing to do, and the second proposal is for the windows. So he stated, with the property being listed as a contributing property on the Mandeville's historic survey, the proposed alterations is to remove the 4 third-story windows on the south side of the building and replace with matching single over single style, double insulated, double hung vinyl framed windows. And he attached all of the information to support that of what he's proposing to change. So these are the 4 windows here of the application. Closer look. So again, 1/1 windows. Photo of the interior of the windows. And then all of the replacement window details. So I did want to provide, again, anytime that 201 Carroll comes in front of you, the historic photo of the bank building, just as reference. And then we also have another one as well. These are photos of the streetscape surrounding the structure. And design review comments. So the proposed improvements really enhance the building. They feel the gable material will enhance the overall look of the 3rd floor and make it clean to the eye. And as far as the windows replacement, because they felt that it's not an original feature of the building, they have no problem with the replacement as long as the windows stay a 1/1 design. Some other members feel, though, vinyl is more of a substantial look than wood for the windows. So there was a little bit of split down the center of the vinyl material versus wood. And that is all that I have.
All right, thank you. I see we have the owners here tonight, Mr. and Ms. Kiefer, and we do have the architect, Von Solberger, who is not commissioned, has stepped down to represent the owners. So do you all want to continue with, anybody want to come up and add to that, Thomas, or?
Thomas Kiefer, 219 Meridian Avenue. No, I thought it was summed up fine. It'd be kind of funny if you denied the request for the pediment molding because Bill Berry recommended it.
And he's not here tonight, so.
It was a great upgrade. It was a great idea. So we went with it and found someone who can custom make something for it.
Thomas, can you pull that microphone to you?
Sure.
Is it not?
We found someone who could custom make a molding that would tie in with the feature of the dental work that was shown on one of the slides. On the windows, the existing windows, that used to be a flat top building, and then the gable was added at some point. Don't ask me when, because I don't know. But these windows are, I would just describe them as kind of cheapy. They're wood framed, but they have a vinyl siding that the windows glide up and down on, and there's like spring-loaded, and they're just kind of junky. So I know there's been some other cases involving windows and whether vinyl windows. I would just suggest that you consider being consistent in the process that you follow and not the outcome, because not every property is the same. In this case, these windows are not 100-year-old windows. In the original case that I had before the commission, I had asked to replace the second-story windows with vinyl windows, and midway through the hearing, the logic of the commission convinced me that's not a good idea. So I withdrew that request midway because the windows on the second floor are original. And I thought, okay, well, we'll just refurbish them. So I think this is distinguishable, and unless you have any questions, I have nothing else to add.
Thank you, Thomas. No, that's great. Yeah, I think that was well explained, and for Karen was not a couple of these other.
I have a
commissions,
question.
But yeah, what we're going to do is get
across.
comments, and sometimes we start with the architects, and sometimes we start with
Very good.
whoever. But if you have a question and you want to go for it,
It's
your
just one
questions and
question
thoughts.
on
so.
the window. Somebody mentioned the vinyl profile is thicker, more intrusive. Is it the same or different?
I didn't understand the comment that was made about the difference between the appearance of the proposed replacement and these. The windows that we propose using are the same style and the same dimension, the same depth. They're basically inserts. And so I didn't understand what the concern was there about what the appearance would be.
My impression was that perhaps it was like thicker styles. I guess if that's the right terminology.
I think in the materials, it shows what the window would look like.
So I think design review was basically looking at for what an original wood window or what a wood window would look like installed versus a vinyl window installed. I think they were just commenting that normally you can tell the difference between the two whenever they're installed.
That was my question. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Since we're over here, I'll go to Rachel. Any thoughts, questions?
Well, I mean, I wasn't here for the original application and all that discussion. I guess I would ask two questions. With there being only 4 windows to replace, I guess personally I would think maybe let's make them match up with the others, but I don't know if the fact that they are currently not the original windows, if that means that, that's not really a consideration.
Right, well, the design review comments and, the second bullet point right there, really identifies the fact that they weren't original, and design review said they had no problem with them as long as they were 1/1 design. So, yeah, I think 1/1 with a 1/1, makes sense, but the architect must have a comment.
So I understand exactly what y'all are asking, what you're saying, and also what Thomas has been through with the other windows. The other windows on the building are, you can physically touch them, you can see them, there they are, and they are original, or if they were, replaced at some point in their life, they were matching the old windows. These windows up top are the same dimension, they're the same, there's a sash and a frame, just like the other ones. They will be painted, so they won't be, white or something that sticks out or stands out, because they're proposed to be a vinyl construction in lieu of wood up there. You'll never be able to tell the difference. And the ones that are up there, you know, were, well, they have vinyl components with them already. How about that?
All right, thanks. Leah Quinn?
I think my only comment is about matching, even if you put wood in there, it's still not going to look like the original windows because of the way the building is, and it's recessed differently. So it's like they're different anyway.
Right. All right, thanks. Jeff Bishop?
Yeah, so back to the original building versus what was added, that is an addition, I think that Ms. Gale had done at some point in time. And, you know, those windows are in fact different. She did a pretty good job of matching them in the 1/1 style to what's there. And of course, back then, there's been a lot of movement in window technology. You know, I've had wood-clad Andersons and Pellas in different houses that I've built, or they're wood windows, but vinyl-clad, I should say, and they're actually pretty high-end.
Right.
They're very, very nice, and it makes sense in a lot of situations where you don't have an easy access to maintain them and keep them clean and neat-looking and painted and that sort of thing. And the vinyl, as I understand, comes in different colors, so I suspect you're just going to go with a white or whatever color is your ultimate scheme for the building.
We are gonna go with white, and the building will be repainted, and the trim, I can say, will be white.
Yeah, so, you know, it affords you the ability to have a window that stays crisp and clean, and although maybe the complete vinyl windows over maybe a wood clad, there is probably a little bit of difference in the dimensional height and width of the styles. And in the sash up there, I think it makes sense in this particular application. I think they would look just fine. So I don't have any problem with it in this particular application.
Great, thank you. Any comments from anybody else in the audience on the case? And I guess we'll do the case, HC 230209 first. And so if we don't have any comments from anybody, can I get a motion on the option 3 of fascia boards on the gable of the HC the 09 case? Anybody want to make a motion on that case?
I'll move to vote
Okay.
on the matter.
Motion by Ms. McGinnis for, and so you want to just state that?
To vote
Motion
on the matter of
yeah.
HC 23-0209.
And you want to, how do you want to vote?
I would vote in favor. I move to vote in favor of
Okay.
that. Yes,
So motion
thank
by
you.
Ms. McGinnis to vote in favor of that option. Anybody want to make a second on that motion?
Second.
Second by Ms. Vogeltans. Thank you. Any further discussion from anybody? Commission? Audience? Thank you.
Okay. Jeff Bernard,
4.
Jeff Bishop,
4.
Vaughn Solberger, Leah Quinn,
4.
Rachel Vogeltans,
4.
and Karen McGinnis.
4.
Thank you.
That motion.
Thank you. All right, so we'll go to HC 230526, the window replacements. Can I get a motion on that case?
Sure, I'll make a motion on HC 23-05-26 that we accept the proposal as offered.
All right, thank you. Motion by Mr. Bishop. Second by
Second.
Second by Ms. Vogeltans. Thank you. Further comments, questions, audience? All right.
All right. And Jeff Bernard,
4.
Jeff Bishop,
4.
Vaughn Solberger, Leah Quinn,
4.
Rachel Vogeltans,
4.
and Karen McGinnis.
4.
Motion passes.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you all for your your presentation, and good luck with the project. All right. Thank you all. Good luck. Good. All right. Next case, old business, HC 19-12-45, commercial, 220 Gerard Street, elevation addition, COA revision. And we looked at this last time, and it was deferred, and so I will ask for your presentation on that.
So I just want to remind everybody, I know we got new microphones, but today they're a little bit further away from you, so if you could please click them on and pull them closer whenever you make your comments, just so that we could have the camera here and pick up all the sound. So, okay, so case HC 19-12-45, commercial 220 Gerard Street, elevation addition, and a COA revision. So we did hear this one last time. We do have a new commissioner on, so I am going to kind of go through a brief summary and just kind of recap as best as I can as last time and to give you the most up-to-date information that I have. So the applicant owns Lot 2A located in Square 10, fronting off Gerard Street. And again, the applicant is applying for the revision of the addition and elevation of a historic structure. So in the last Historic District meeting on May 18th, the commission stated that they wanted to defer the applicant to provide some viable solutions to lower the building to what was previously approved. The commission wanted to see different options on how the design could be changed to match the existing permitted plan. They requested a reason from the applicant if the change was not being made. So again, I wanted to go ahead and provide to you the original structure of what it looked like before any work was done on the property, and that this structure is listed on the Historic District Survey as contributing, and it goes back to 1925 to 1935. And this is the 200 block streetscape of Gerard Street of what is surrounding the existing building. So this was the site plan that was permitted for the project, and they have proposed new site plans. You will see in your packet the proposed plans. If it has the kind of red bubbles, you can see here, this is what the architect or designer kind of bubbled in of what they're proposing to change from the last time that y'all had seen it. I didn't really get explanations of bullet points of exactly what those changes are, but I will go ahead and read to you the applicant's statement, because I wanted just to make sure if there was any changes for him to be able to tell, but based off that, he said we're not changing, but explaining in more detail. Since there was so much confusion, I appreciate you sending, and I believe that they are very familiar with the project from our last meeting, so they should have significant time to, significant, I cannot pronounce that word, time to review the project. So basically, I just wanted just to kind of state that, because for me presenting the case to you, trying to give you the best possible information and give the applicant enough respect that anything that he turns into me in the time frame that he was able to give it to me, that I was able to forward that on to you. We know that these processes and times can be challenging for both sides, so just trying to be fair on both sides for the applicant and respect y'all's time as the reviewers. So again, this was the permanent front elevation of what is in file for a permit system, with the grade to ceiling proposed being 6 foot 7 5/8. Last meeting, so on the 18th, you can see on the bottom, it was 8 5/8. That was the first submittal. And then recently, he submitted proposed changes. So the grade to ceiling being 7/8 3/8 with 2 3 5/8 fascia board of the second submittal. So last time, I think there was some discussion on whether or not this fascia board was actually thicker than what was really on site. So that was kind of redrawn, that you can see the difference of the 2 feet there versus the 1 and 7. So the applicant is here once I'm done presenting to you, that if, once y'all kind of talk, if y'all had any questions, feel free, he is there to answer your questions. So the rear elevation of what was permitted, again, the first submittal to you last time, and then this new submittal, you can see the bubbles here of changes, or not changes, but I guess what they're trying to clarify. The right side elevation that was permitted, again, first proposal, then second proposal, and the left side. So they did provide the slab edge detail on the infill, the foundation plan, and then the typical wall section and load path. So you can see the 6'3" top of slab, and then basically the finished floor elevation of 16.1. And then they did submit today an updated drainage plan, which I did forward on to you for your review. So I wanted to go ahead and, like last time I did give this to you as well, just the original approval letter from 2019, whenever they originally began this process with the Historic District Commission. So the commission, they did comment on the height of the structure not exceeding 7'6". The scale of the building is important as relation to the neighboring structures. And basically, the current measurements on site, whenever the building official and I went out there just to try to get the measurements and the updated plans that they turned in for clarification, the top of grade beam shows to be at 6'3" to the finished floor of 16.1, and then the top of grade beam to the lowest horizontal member, which would be the under basically the clearance underneath, 7'6" with 2 foot 3 5/8. That's the thickness of the fascia board. The applicant also did turn in a updated landscape plan that you can see. This is the front elevation that he did with a drawing as well as his scale drawings. And you can see he turned in a video as well. So, and just to really kind of go through this, last time y'all had kind of heard design review comments, but I think I guess I can go through and kind of read these again. The biggest thing was just the case that we have a problem with the scale and massing, especially knowing that the building on the other side of this one will be elevated sometime in the near future. Minor deviations can add up to major effects on the streetscape. And then mainly an overview of just design review that they wanted, I guess, to get by to you is that the only comment is that whatever the commission approves, that they will essentially be approving all of the properties along the row, as every one of those property owners is going to point to this one as a standard. So if the commission is okay with the block all being raised to this height, higher than what was approved previously, it's pretty much a green light for the adjacent properties, for the same as it's going to be hard to justify saying no. So that's the best I could kind of do from y'all's last meeting to what has been turned in this time. And if y'all have any questions or clarification, the applicant is here.
Thank you. So last time we deferred this, this case, after all of those comments and explanations, although the comment before may have been confusing to some, there was a lot of information in there. I don't know that it was that confusing, but we, as I remember and refresh my memory, that we went back to the applicant and said, we want a couple of solutions to this problem, that what was built was not, what was approved was not built. So how do we fix it? And we talked about that for a good bit, and then we said we're going to defer this thing until we get some more information. So I don't know if I'm looking at everything, but I don't certainly see the solution part of it. I see the redelineation of the problem, but I don't see, solution 1, solution 2, solution 3 up there. So maybe I'm not seeing everything. So I'll defer to Mr. Newfield to maybe clarify that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Good evening.
Good evening.
So, the way I look at it and the way I see it is this. I made an error. It happens. We're all human. Agreed? Agreed?
Yeah, we're all,
human.
That's awesome. Okay.
All human.
So,
start with that.
let's start with that, right? We can agree on that. So not only did I make an error, but the city made an error and did approve this height of these grade beams. So in a critical path of construction, the next step was to set columns in place. The building was still elevated. Columns got set, reinforced steel, et cetera, et cetera. House is leveled onto columns. About 3 months later, my friends show up and say, hey, this ain't right. And I said, okay. So I stopped, got the stop order, okay. But we all have to understand, if both of us are wrong and you guys are asking me to only fix my part, I feel like that's kind of unfair. I think it's very unfair, okay, for a number of reasons, and I'll be glad to get into that. So what my proposal is, to satisfy you guys, because there was concern about the height of the building, so many different concerns. So let me start with, just so we're all on the same page, the building height and mass was approved upon the very first HPDC meeting. And many of you, if not maybe all of you, were not there. Don't know, it was quite a while back. Okay. Overall, the existing height of the new proposal is it's right at 2 inches taller. Not the first level, I understand that, but overall, we're talking about 2 inches higher. So when I hear the comment, oh my God, you know, the rest of the neighborhood's gonna freak out, and the next guy's gonna be able to go off at this height and all that, it's like, guys, let's relax, talking about 2 inches. And B, I'm still in compliance with code. I'm less than 35 foot tall, which was what the overall goal was by the first commission that we met with. Regarding the height differential, the grade beams are in compliance and in code. They are not more than 6 inches above natural grade. So we proposed previously, just to recap, that we will just do an infill. There'll be no more concrete poured on top. It'll be an infill. The rest of the parking area will slope and will also meet that natural grade. It will not exceed 6 inches above natural grade. The drainage, as per Del Caldwell, is approved. It's been approved. It has not changed. The only thing we adjusted was he did not have the FFE correct in the cross-section at the bottom. So I made that adjustment. I wanted to send that to you guys so there was no confusion there. The driveway will slope and obviously connect to the sidewalk so that there's no height changes there. The landscaping from the sidewalk going up to the building and of course wrapping around will be plush, flush, and you really won't even see the concrete. I have a landscape architect. I own a landscaping company. I've been doing that for over 20 years. It will look great, I promise you. And lastly, I would say in regard to what seems to be the biggest concern, which is the height from the bottom of the building to the grade beams, we are proposing to first of all stay in compliance, keep a 7 foot 6 inch clearance, which was approved before, and give you guys and create a larger skirt board to enhance the building and give more coverage so that the distance between the bottom of the building and the grade beam or the parking lot at that point would be 7 foot 6 inches. I think it's very reasonable, and I honestly, I'm doing everything I can to work with you guys, and I'm hoping you will do the same tonight.
Thank you, thank you. I appreciate that.
Can I make one more point?
Sure.
The one building that was not shown is the building directly across the street from me. That building, from the bottom of the grade beam, from the top of the grade beam, which is the concrete foundation, from the top of the grade beam to the bottom of the sill has an 8-foot clearance, 100% 8 foot. So my proposal is actually less than that, or better than that, if you will. Now, I'm not throwing them under the bus. I understand they were, whatever, they were granted that before it went historic or what have you, but I'm just making a preference. It is a very large building. The building next door to them is very large too, but it's very recessed into the land, so you can't see it that well with the trees and stuff like that. So again, yes, it's a big building, but keep in mind that the Camelback is pretty far back into the backyard.
I think the 3D
All right,
Please come up to the microphone. You gotta come up to the microphone.
and your name and,
Alfred Hayes. I was just going to say his 3D image shows how far back the third floor addition is. And in fact, if you're standing on the sidewalk, you'll never see that addition.
One more thing, because it'll probably come up. There was questions about the stair risers. We double-checked and reconfirmed there will be no additional stair risers. You'll have the same amount of risers as we did before. The landing underneath the stairs will slope to the sidewalk. And again, the landscaping will cover any concrete that would be visible without it being there.
The original drawings or revised drawings showed the 16.1 as the elevation of the second floor. The porch actually steps down to 15.7. So that eliminated one step.
all right. Thank you. Thank you, I appreciate that. I'm going to start with commission comments. I think everybody was here except for Karen, who wasn't on board last time, so heard the case presented last time and heard the deferral. And the only person is not here tonight that was here last time was Billy Barry. So, we appreciate your resubmission, and let's hear comments, and I'll start with Von Solberger, who's the architect. Who's the owner.
Excuse me, Chairman. I just wanted to clear a few things up.
Oh, sure.
With, some statements Randy had made. As far as the beams go, we didn't approve the beams. We said that they could be compliant. So this project, the initial drainage inspection is still, has not passed. And as far as the drainage plan itself, the revisions have not been approved. But I think you're making your way towards becoming compliant, but we do not have a approved drainage plan from, or signed off by a digital engineer, the city's consultant engineer. And the beams are compliant. They could be compliant, but as I understand, there's a whole lot more involved with the beams and the parking lot tying together. So I just wanted to clear that up.
Thank
That
you.
we haven't approved the drainage, but it's.
But it was approved.
Thank you.
We're talking about a handful. We changed the number to reflect, so I'm not sure. The drainage plan itself essentially is the same, so we have to get approval for that again?
Well, I think you're gonna, yes, because the finished floor height has changed.
Okay,
Instead of being lower, it's actually higher now.
okay,
So
Yeah.
we will need to sign off, or the consulting engineer will have to sign off on it.
gotcha.
Well, Cliff, thank you for the clarity. So, you know, what we all understand is that an error was made. This is a complicated project with drainage plans, other components of the plans, a lot of which are not under our purview. For example, the landscaping plan, we can't really weigh in on any of that. We're going to try and find you know, we want a solution to this project. Obviously, everybody does. So, Von Solberger, comments first, and go from there.
So that mistake that was made at the earth level has a domino effect of what's going on. You've been able to mitigate some of that by cutting out a foot here and inches there and some things there. And also with the drainage, I mean, you know, I do this for a living in town too, and we have to comply with all these things. And,
Right.
you know, today I was satisfied with, you know, the strategies that the civil engineer's doing. He's a good guy
Yeah.
and, you know, and does good work. And, you know, so I think you'll be able to just thread the needle on these things. I mean, the ones on the ground, on the earth level.
Okay.
But they're different than what was approved before. I think that's the point of other commissioners about what they were discussing and talking about.
Okay.
And so I'm interested to just hear what they have to say. I understand, and you're very clear. You did a very good presentation of what, you know, has transpired, where you're headed, and what you're looking to do. So thank you for that. I happen to be across the street, you know, from your building, and I was there today, and, you know, all the plans say hardy siding, hardy siding, hardy siding. And the whole building's wood siding on all four sides, all of it, on top of barge board in place. And that's what we got. So that may have been missed or not, you know, visually inspected or inspected up front or gone on there and we knock on it and all that stuff.
Right.
But that's what we have, you know, also to take a look at here as to where we're going. Our guidelines, as you may know, allow for hardy siding in the historic district when it's on an addition or new construction. It's absolutely allowed. And, you know, and even further, there's, you know, national you know, periodicals and all these sorts of things that come out, and it's actually recommended you don't use the wood grain one, you use the flat flush one. And it actually looks like the one that you have. It looks
Smooth,
like,
yeah.
you get up close to it, you know, you see that it's wood, but if you stand by, well, anyway, so the additions and the rear and all that sort of stuff, you know, that, Mr. Hayes, may be accurate, you know, as far as that goes, but, you know, we have, you know, an obligation to, you know, what is going on here around Old Mandeville with, you know, the wood siding is to make an effort to look at preserving that. And that wasn't ever an issue because the plans all say hardy siding. I just want to bring that up as just something. And, you know, once you're approved on anything at any stage or level, there's no end game to approvals. Because an inspector can go out there at any point, fire marshal, et cetera, et cetera. It doesn't matter what's said on the plans. It doesn't matter what red ink was on there. It doesn't matter what addendum you did. It doesn't matter what the engineer did. The fire marshal goes out there and finds something not in compliance. Well, that's stop. You got to fix it. And the same, I think, would go for drainage. You know, regardless of what it says on the plans, if it's not draining, you're going to have to fix it. Well, same with everything else having to do with all these other things. So, you know, any one of these government bodies and everybody that has all this input on plan review and us here talking about whatever, I mean, you know, there's certain things that it doesn't ever die
Right.
for your need for compliance to guidelines and things and the laws. And I just want to bring that up.
Sure.
Is it just, it happened once. We had a field inspection where they said, yeah, it looks good. Yeah, that doesn't mean all the other dominoes have to, you
Right.
know, get back in line to, you know, go after that one item. I just wanted to bring that up. I mean, it's, you know, in commercial construction, that's just how it goes.
Yep.
That's all I got.
Okay.
Thank you, Vaughn. Jeff Bishop, I'll go to you since you're.
Yeah, this is a tough one.
Okay.
And we want your project to be successful, but we want the whole block and everyone's projects to be successful.
Agreed.
And where this whole thing has gotten crossways has to do with benchmarks and elevations and putting things in that are not compliant with the drawings that were approved. To an extent where it is a big deal to our purview when all of a sudden you've got your front porch elevation at 1.5 inches taller than what it's designed, what was it approved to be, okay? That's where it is.
Okay.
That's where it is. You've got between 710 and 711 between your grade beams and the bottom of your steel beams,
Correct.
not 7.6 and 3/4, whatever.
No,
You might have
I
that.
didn't say
to the-
that. I agree.
Right, you
Yep.
might have
I
that.
measured it. Yep.
To maybe some perimeter fascia board. But there are ways to deal with that, because your automobiles, you know, That's not for us to deal with right now.
Right.
We've got a lot of technical complications with this project that I'm not certain that we need to be addressing tonight without some resolution to a number of them. We don't want to deny your project. We're always looking for solutions, but sometimes those solutions are outside of what we're able to control within this simple commission. You know, Cliff with the city here, what he does with drainage runs parallel to what we do.
Right.
There's a lot of parallel authorities here who overlap in their responsibilities, but we don't even have complete approvals yet with the changes that have been made. This commission deals with what this project looks like from the street. Streetscape is a big, big deal. We know what the rules are. You've got to be compliant. You've got to have 7'6" clear. We appreciate that. We'd love to see it 8 foot. Be better for you. Be better for your tenants.
Yeah.
But sometimes that isn't possible.
Right.
So when the design review talks about massing and those things, yeah, it's a big building comparatively. I mean, what I think there's going to be, it's the fire marshal allows 40-something people in there, right? I don't know where else in Old Town that we've got a building that allows 40-something people besides church.
But again, though, Jeff, with all due respect, we're getting back to what was approved 2 years ago.
I
3
understand
years
that,
ago.
and that's exactly my point.
Yeah.
What was approved?
It was
and
approved.
What was approved?
Right.
And where we are today.
Right.
And therein lies the problem that we have.
So why don't we?
So,
Yeah.
so where I am with this is that, you know, for us to just say, yeah, we appreciate everything you're doing, it sounds like a good plan.
Yeah.
We're not I don't believe that, myself as a commissioner, I'm not there tonight to be able to grant approval of this with so many loose ends. And I don't want you to be pushed into a situation where, with so many loose ends and approvals yet to be obtained with the modified design, quite frankly, nobody wants to see it turned down. No, we don't want to go there. None of us do. I know that I made a motion last meeting that you give us some solutions on how we could get this building back down in some form or fashion to closer to where that front porch elevation was approved. I don't know if that's reasonable or not.
It's not,
All I
Jeff.
know is that we didn't get those
Right.
solutions offered to us tonight. So with that, I can only suggest to defer looking at this thing until other authorities and approvals and things that have to take place outside of this commission are dealt with. From the information you submitted, there's obviously some confusion not on our part necessarily, but in your group's part. There's some real quality control issues with this project. I know you've spent a lot of money. Mr. Hayes has got dozens of pages. We all know what that cost.
And the
fact
7
of
months loss, right?
And, it's a big, big loss.
big loss.
But that lack of quality control and notification to the city, and when this was granted, that any changes, the city be notified right away. None of that was done, and that could have been done with proper quality control.
Okay, so I disagree with you there.
Well, I
Okay.
don't. I'm a contractor. I've been doing it 37 years.
Good.
So, when we make a mistake, we have to fix it.
Right.
But nonetheless, it's not, in my opinion, in this commission's purview at this point, with so many loose ends, to make a decision tonight. We can. We can. We can support you to work through it with some other things that need to be done, or we can be forced to take a vote, and we'll just see where it lands. But we don't want your project to fail. We want it to be successful, but we cannot carte blanche approve, something that's so critical, and it would have such an effect on the main street of our main part of our town.
Right.
With the adjacent properties, north and south, right behind you, right in the queue to do the same thing. We've brought up a number of parallel potential issues and problems that we see as a commission to the city that have to be addressed by other bodies. And so that's why I'm saying what I'm saying tonight. So with that, I'm going to leave it alone.
All right. Thank you, Jeff.
Can I comment real quick?
Yeah, it'd be better if we get all the rest
Yeah,
of
and
the
then I'll-
comments, and then you can
That's
respond.
cool.
Sure.
That's a good idea.
Thanks. Leah Quinn, any thoughts or comments?
Whoops. I have similar with what Jeff expressed, that there seems to be a lot of loose ends about the height of the slab, which means the change of the fill grade that affects the height of every, that drainage thing will affect not only the two houses on the side, but the whole block. And I think that if you have it filled differently than what it was, what is it going to look like all around the edge? I feel that that has to be decided.
All right, thank
or
you.
My
Thank you.
desire to be
Yeah.
answered. And that's not our business to do, but I would like to know what it is.
Right. All right, thank you. Since Rachel was here last time, I'll go with Rachel and then Karen.
Okay. And I apologize if I missed this, but what was the mistake that the city was
They
was
approved.
claimed to be made by the city?
Yeah, they approved the height of the grade beam prior to me pouring. I called for the inspection and he approved it. So yes, I made my mistake and he made his. So when he approved it, we moved forward. And with all due respect, if there was a lack of quality control, it's on me on that one item, because we really haven't done a whole lot of work since then. So, but from there, so the grade beam, the concrete columns went up, and then the building was lowered onto the steel, and everything was set in place. Equipment moved off, and then, I was made aware of the situation.
So you didn't know before that it
No.
was the wrong
No,
height or that
No,
it was a
no, I
mistake?
didn't.
Yeah,
I
guess-
would not have poured it, trust me. If he'd have failed my inspection, I would not have poured it.
That's my only question.
And that's never happened before, by the way. But side note.
All right.
Rachel.
To me.
Thank you.
Rachel, just to clarify, what he's speaking about is the slab inspection, foundation inspection being approved. So that inspection, the inspector looks at the structural steel supports, the footing itself. Public Works comes in with an initial drainage inspection where we check slab heights to make sure they comply with the chloro in that sub-area. So both of those, even though that inspection was completed, the initial drainage inspection that either I or Victoria with digital engineer performed, that one was not completed
Okay.
before the concrete beams were poured.
Thank you for clarifying that. I mean, I guess for me, I feel like it's, your job to kind of stay in compliance with what got approved. And
Agreed.
it seems like here you kind of just kept going, even though it wasn't in compliance.
Well, not knowing it was in compliance, yes, I kept going, then stopped. And then after another survey to double check, hey, let's make sure we're good here. And Cliff did come out, shot elevations too, if I'm not mistaken.
I did.
And maybe we didn't get an actual check mark of approval, but my understanding was between him and Kara and Lauren is that the top of that grade beam is in compliance, which therefore would mean it would pass an inspection. And therefore, again, the drainage plan hasn't changed. It's still gonna drain. I totally understand what you're saying, and I understand your concern about drainage. I deal with it all the time, north and south shore. And I'm gonna make sure it works, and that's why I have a drainage engineer who double-checked everything. So, the fact that that wasn't checked off and the drainage plan hasn't been checked off, in my opinion, let's not make it this huge deal. It's two forms that need to be addressed, and then we can move forward.
So,
Vaughn, can I interrupt you for a second before, because,
do we require form spots before we pour concrete?
Yeah.
That
It's a
is
very
an
frequent.
absolute measure. That is the quality control that needs to happen. That is the thing in place that does that. All this other talk, form spot is
Fine.
what we have.
Okay,
Well,
check.
Vaughn, to clarify that, the original drawings, I believe, showed a 6-inch topping on the footing.
That's correct.
So I would think if you were gonna pour footings, you probably wouldn't get a form spot.
Correct.
And then after, you know, you're doing your
Somebody
top.
accidentally caught it. So it was accidentally caught before it got 6 inches more.
Well, yeah, it would have been
Yeah.
way more. That's when we were called out.
all right, thanks. Karen, I know you weren't here, but you're free to make comments or ask any
Sure, just so I
questions.
can make sure I'm
Sure,
wrapping my head around
sure.
the contentious issues. So my understanding is that a drainage inspection would occur before the concrete would be poured? Is that correct?
Yes, that's the order.
And
The
a drainage
sequence.
inspection was not,
It was
that
not.
did not occur in this case
That didn't
before
occur,
the
correct.
concrete was poured? And that would occur after the form spot
We would
part
usually,
of the construction?
typically, we would receive a form spot
Mhm.
before a drainage inspection is called.
Okay, so in this case, the 6 inches, that's not going to be added at this point?
Correct.
Where are you above what was permitted originally?
I'm not, I'm actually at the height, the final height that was permitted.
Not the
of the
top
parking.
height, but the foundation?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, so without the added 6 inches that you're now not going to add, is he in compliance at this point with the plans?
Not,
Can we back up? You asked a question whether or not the form or the concrete was poured at the permitted height. That's incorrect. It was permitted at 5.6 feet. It's poured at 6.3 feet.
So 5.6 to 6.3?
Correct.
But I think her question was, is it the same as the final height, not the grade beam height? I think that's what she was alluding to.
I'm just trying to identify the exact difference that was permitted for the bottom foundation versus what you have now without the 6 inches
Gotcha.
added.
Okay.
Okay, so that would have been 5.6 versus 6.3? Is that the difference that we're looking at?
I believe so.
Okay, so it's, okay, so 9 inches higher there, and then it looks like there was another layer above the, or below the raised house. where
Right.
Now that has gone from 1 foot 7 5/8 inches to 2 feet 3 5/8 inches, so that's another 8 inch difference. So we're looking at 17 inches, a foot 5 inches difference. Is that the discrepancy?
Yeah, that's what I have, yeah, 17 inches.
And so you're saying that to soften that mistake, that you have sloped the land outward from the foundation to the elevation of the ground around?
The parking would be, yeah.
Is the parking is under the building at
It
this
is.
point? And so
And it-
you'll be like kind of driving up into the parking?
Correct.
Whereas before it was just a straight pull-in?
Right.
Well, the parking kind of straddles the
North.
outline of the building. So if you look, if you look where Lawrence Pointer is, so that's actually the edge of the building. So the parking spaces are like halfway under the building and halfway out of the building. So that's the difference in the slab is now you have a parking space that's got a 6-inch curve in between it. So that's the other issue that we've got to deal with.
So when the car would park, it would be on a slant, essentially, at this point?
Yes.
And so that begs the drainage issue that everyone is talking about. So not from a design perspective, but not approving this until you know that the drainage is going to, the runoff is going to be accounted for and will stay on the property and go down before running onto the neighbor's property? Is that what we're,
Well, that's part of it, and it's also that we just don't carte blanche approve a mistake with lack of basic oversight on, and stopping the project whenever we knew that there was a problem. To your, listen, in support of what you're doing here, what you submitted today, I believe a fellow named Dell, that's your civil engineer? I mean, I read where he instructed you to pour the foundation at 6.3. So, again, I don't know that there was a lot of confusion on our end. I think the confusion was with your team. And until we get some resolution on all this being sorted out and brought back to us, for us to just carte blanche approve a series of mistakes, a domino effect, I just don't think that that's currently in our purview.
If he's saying pour it at 6.3, the top of the grade beam is at 6.3, how am I not in line
No,
with
sir.
what you're saying?
Your plans say 5.6.
The old plans.
I'm sorry. No, the plans that were approved.
Right. Plans were approved.
Let's not confuse that.
I'm
So-
talking about the updated plans is what I'm talking about.
Those are not approved.
Understood, but that's why we're here.
I understand.
That's why
And
we-
there's a lot of loose ends that have to be resolved
And we'll resolve
and
them.
brought back to us. And to my earlier statement to you, we have, this commission has two things they can do. We can either suggest that maybe all these loose ends go get tied up, and when it's brought back to us, that we have something clean, and we understand what's going on, and all the approvals are in place that have to be before we vote on this, and we can help get your project, make it successful, or we're forced into voting on what is here today versus what was approved, which is substantially different, and it's a big concern to everybody here, the people along the street. It sets a precedent, we've gone over that.
Yeah, we
I'm not
have.
going to
Yeah.
repeat myself,
Appreciate it.
okay, but there's a lot of overlap with other departments and governing bodies here. You know, we're just looking at one piece of this. So again, I'm going to leave it at where I said, we've got two avenues, and we would like for you to take the right one and make it easy on all of us.
Right, and Jeff, it sounds like we're at a crossroads here with what we feel like we're comfortable approving and what we're not, and I certainly feel that way as well, and I think everybody else does too. So I'd like to ask if anybody, to sort of call the question and get a motion on the case so that we can go forward from here. I know I need comments from the audience first to do that, or maybe I get a motion and I get comments afterwards. Okay, so I'd like to get a.
Could I make one comment quickly?
Sure.
Especially for Karen's benefit, because she
Please.
asked the question. The paving on the edge of the parking, there's like 8'2" on one side and 13 something on the other side. We're sloping that down to only 1/10 of a foot higher than what was originally proposed. It was 5.7, and we now have it at 5.8. So in terms of drainage, we're talking about 1/10 of a
so
foot.
the slope has
To-
gone from, say, what did it go from again? 5.8 to 5.7?
Yes. It went up. In other words, the edge of the paving is 1/10 of a foot higher. What, 2 inches, 2 3/8 inches, something like that.
What about the?
That's not going to really change the drainage, is my point.
So prior, though, it was flat and at grade, correct?
Maybe I'll back up a little bit. The original design called for a slab or a framework that was 30 inches deep, that was like a mat foundation. And we were going to pour an 8-inch thick slab on top of that. The building was put in the air based upon assuming we were going to pour an 8-inch slab. So that's why the columns are too high. But there was another issue where the boards, we had anticipated not using the sills that were on the building, but using 1.5 inch sill on top of the steel beam framework that was gonna hold it up. When the elevator did his thing, he kept the sills. So we ended up being 7 inches higher on that basis. So there's a series of things that happened that ended up, you're quite right, it was about 1.5 inches high.
So I guess just to be clear, though, it was already going to have some slope, and now it has a little bit of a greater slope, or was it
Yeah, on the
previously
edge.
going to be flat? Was the car park going to be flat, and then now it's like this?
No, the car part was gonna have when the slab was poured, it was gonna have.
At the base, it was going to
it's
drop down?
Slope to the outside, right.
Okay.
Thanks for the clarity. So, I'd like to get a motion on this case, and,
Yeah, public comment.
oh, I thought I could get a motion and then get public comment on the motion in second. Okay. Anybody want to make a motion on this case as it is presented?
I'll make a motion. We made a motion last time for you to come back with some solutions to lower specifically where we could get that front porch elevation lowered than the 1.5 that we all established at the last meeting, that it was higher than what was approved. You hadn't come back with that. And so that leaves my motion, and because I want the project to ultimately be successful, I'm going to make a motion that once again we defer this case and you continue to coordinate with the city planners to fully understand all of the processes and approvals that have to take place, and work very hard to come back with a solution for us that we feel comfortable with approving. And it can't be a drainage plan that's sent out at noon today, or a series of emails that we receive from you where obviously there's mass confusion about elevations. I understand that happens. But if y'all are confused and we wound up with a building 1.5 feet taller than what was approved, how do you think we feel? I really want this project to be successful, so I'm going to make a motion to defer, that you coordinate with the city to tie up all of these loose ends that we've talked about and that we see, come back to us with a plan that we can feel comfortable approving.
I don't know how many more plans I can come to you guys with.
That's my motion.
That's your motion? Okay. We have a motion on the floor. Anybody want to make a second for that?
I'll
motion?
second.
Motion by Mr. Bishop and a second by Ms. Vogeltance, and then we'll get some comments from the audience and comments from
And
you
then
if you'd like. So anybody from the audience want to make comment, want to add to the comments Ms. Rohrbaugh?
Rebecca Rohrbaugh, 2525 Lakeshore Drive. After Katrina, our immediate adjacent neighbor, who took in about 1 foot to 18 inches of water throughout their house, decided that they would elevate. It was a basic Creole cottage. It had a peaked roof with dormers, and they had to meet the criteria that FEMA dictated for height immediately after Katrina. Now, many of you will remember those maps were changed after a lot of work by a lot of people at the city 2 or 3 years later, and became more reasonable. But unfortunately, our neighbors went up under the original rules. They had to go up so high, to us, it looked like a birdhouse on a pole. Well, it did to the owners also. We did not have a historic commission at that time. They did everything they could think of to improve the appearance of that house and anchor it back down. They built a hip roof. They did a wraparound gallery while there was only a front porch before. They sloped the ground. They spent lavishly on landscaping. Much of those same approaches I saw in the rendering tonight. And it's a lot of work and a lot of expense, just as my neighbors went to. It helps, but to this day, you walk across the street and you stand there and you look dead on at this house with the ground sloping up and all the landscaping and the considerable alterations they did. It's simply still disproportionate, and it's just so obvious. The house's proportion is forever altered and negatively. And when I looked at the pictures tonight, I said, I recognize all these steps to try to do something to make it look better, but it doesn't change the fact. It's just a disproportionate undercarriage for that small and lovely little house. You made the right call the first time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rohrabauer. Anybody else from the audience want to make a comment? All right, thanks. We have a motion on the floor and a second. Mr. Newfield?
Looks like I got 30 seconds. I guess what I came here tonight hoping for, and still a little confused on, is if we need a drainage plan again, okay, and the top of the beams, it's fine. But you guys are supposed to, I thought we were here for you guys to approve where we are right now with the building at the height it is. I'm at a hardship. I can't come back and lower this building. I'm out over $500,000 since Ida, still haven't gotten paid from the insurance company. I don't have any more cash to throw at this. And especially after 7 months of sitting and paying the bank note, I'm all in, guys. So my thought and prayer, literally, tonight, was that you guys would say, okay, we get it, we see where you're at. Okay, the skirt board's gonna adjust the height. I understand the porch is higher than you like. But to me, you guys are hitting me with all your opinions and not trying to work with me is where I'm at. And I don't understand it. I don't know why we have so much friction. I know you don't like the project, and I'm sorry. It is what it is. I know she doesn't like the height of the building. Sorry, it's been approved. So if that's gonna be a stalemate, please let me know now, because I don't have time to come back again. So if you can't give me approval for what we have right now, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to just say that I don't think that I don't feel the friction, okay? So I'm sorry that you do, but we're trying to make your project successful. So we have a motion and a second.
Can I make a comment?
Do we
Past that time.
do we pass that time? I don't know.
I mean, just called.
We actually.
It's up to you.
We actually did pass that time, but Mr. Klesse, if you want to make a quick comment, yeah, because I asked for comments and then.
Sure. Well, I wasn't going to speak. I don't know if my comments are going to be helpful to Mr. Newfield. But the Historic Committee, really one of the main things that y'all are supposed to be doing is consistency within the city limits. Consistency and conformity. Those days are gone. You have houses here that are 12 feet off the ground and next door 2 feet off the ground. So there's no conformity here. There's no consistency. You're trying to do something. This gentleman here, we elevated the home. It wasn't our mistake. He is a contractor and he put in the foundation. You're asking this man to lower the home that has, it would cost $30,000, $40,000 for him to lower the home this much. I mean, you got to take that in consideration. It's as simple as that. If there was a mistake made here or there, this man has spent $500,000 at least trying to create a business for his wife, and I just think that y'all better consider that and the conformity days are over. Thank you.
Thank you, Gerard. I appreciate it. It's good to have that number as well. All right.
All right, Jeff Bernard,
For the motion.
Jeff Bishop,
4.
Vaughn Solberger,
4.
Leah Quinn,
4.
Rachel Vogeltanz,
4.
and Karen McGinnis.
4, because I am deferring to what has transpired before I got here. I'd just like to make that note. And I think that, I think there are valid concerns about the changes, and it's more about precedent setting. I don't think that people don't want to work with you. I think that they're concerned that if they agree to what you're proposing at this point, then they would have to agree to it for others in a similar situation, adjacent properties. So I think that's where the friction is, perhaps, that you're feeling. I think everyone appreciates the lengths that you're going to, and that this is a good project. But I think trying to reconcile precedent and then the mistake that's at hand, I think that's the challenge. And so for that reason, I would say I'm for the motion to try to come to some conclusion, some solution that could be had. I guess at this point, it would just be postponed to the next
2 weeks.
2 weeks. So within a 2-week delay, I guess these issues would get distilled. The drainage plan would get approved, sorted out, and then you'd be back here and we would be looking at a different situation. Is my understanding of kind of where we're at with all of that correct? So
Correct.
for those reasons, I would vote for the motion as well.
All right. Thank you. I think we have it. All right. Thank you all. We have the next case then. We have is new business. HC 23-0630, residential, 2423 Lakeshore Drive, elevation, addition, and renovation.
Okay, so case HC 230630, residential, 2423 Lakeshore Drive, elevation, addition, and renovation. The applicant owns Lot 2D located in Square 28, fronting off Lakeshore Drive. The property is zoned R1 Single Family Residential District. The applicant is applying for raising the existing structure roughly 3.5 feet to meet FEMA base flood elevation +2 requirements, to cut back the roof in the rear of the right wing to clear the existing oak branches when raised. In addition to the left side of the house with a primary bedroom, bath, closets, front and rear porch, materials, color, roof pitches, and details to match the existing historic structure. So the structure is listed on the Historic District Survey as significant, and the structure was built around 1849 to 1850. So again, I always like to point out, whenever we have a structure that's listed on the Historic District Survey as significant, the Secretary of Interior Standards is included in your packet for reference. The survey of the property measures 182 by 481, fronting off Lakeshore Drive. I have provided photos of the existing conditions of the site, and they're from different angles. Here you can see outlined in red is where the addition, with it being on the west side of the structure. So this is the proposed site plan. I did blow it up for you just so you can see what is currently existing and then what is being proposed. So in the green outline is currently the structure that is on site. Everything in blue is the proposed addition. And then I did just want to highlight to you, if you look here, you can see the green here, but then where this red is, that would be moving the structure over. I think we discussed the architect is here today, but I think it's like roughly 2 to 3 feet over just so it can clear these oak branches. So you can see how close the branch is basically next to the structure. So whenever you're going to elevate the structure, it would hit that tree branch. So they're actually having to elevate and move the structure over. So that's why I wanted just to show you all that little area there of what they would be moving over. So the existing residence is roughly 7,000 or 7,100 square feet. And with the proposed addition and new rear porch and new balcony, it would be roughly around 14,000. Again, this is an existing photo of 2 other live oaks on the property as well. So this was a drawing rendering of the proposed addition. You can see here the full front elevation that shows the original significant structure, the right side, and then the new addition here. So the proposed materials of the addition, they're going to have slate roof tiles and a copper roof. It will have a front porch with painted wood detailing, double-hung metal-clad windows, 6-inch horizontal lap siding hardy plank on the addition, operable Spanish cedar louver shutters, turned wood columns and railing to match the existing railings on the structure, painted wood brackets, and plaster veneer CMU columns with Spanish cedar screening underneath. This is the rear elevation. The west side, the architect also did basically provide you a cut section of the stair from the west side, and then the east side elevation. So this is the proposed new roof plan, the ground floor, the second floor plan. It's a little bit enlarged there. And they also provided a railing detail of the new proposed railing for the addition. I did get some photos of the streetscape for you on Lakeshore Drive. In design review, they stated this project has truly blossomed from the beginning. They like the gingerbread design of the addition and agree the rhythm of the windows, porch, replication of columns are all important features for the front facade. The concept of the addition to speak the language of the original building is truly important for the scale and rhythm. They also stated that they wanted to make sure the client understands the importance of the historic well that is located on the property. They just wanted the homeowner to be aware of that as well. And that is all that I have on this case.
Great, thank you, thank you. And I see we have the owner and the architect here tonight.
He's actually the general contractor.
Oh, okay, we have the owner and the contractor agreed. Great, great, thanks. Mr. Vogel, welcome, thank you.
Matthew Vogel.
Appreciate your patience through the last long case.
I understand. Yeah, Matthew Vogel, designer with Studio MB. And if you all have any questions, we're here to answer. I'm here to answer.
Great. Yeah, thank you. I didn't know whether you wanted to add anything.
Yeah,
to
the
our
only
comments.
thing I would add is that before I started this project, I'm looking at these 2 young ladies over here, and I met with them months ago because I knew that it was a significant house and one of your favorites and mine on large acreage and setback, single-family residence, and we just really wanted to respect it. And with that said, the owners are coming from New Orleans, Old Metairie, and they wanted to add on a primary suite. When you said 14,000 square feet, by the way, that's under the house and above, right? I mean, I just wanted to clarify because I was shocked when I heard that. Meaning it's with porches and underneath. So living is more like a 6,000 square foot house. Yes, it's big, but so is the existing home. But anyway, I just wanted to see if that's okay. So Kara said if you do an improvement to the house, we would have to meet the FEMA requirement of raising the house. The owner really did not want to raise the house. We don't want to raise the house, but it's 6 feet clear underneath, and we're raising it 3.5 feet to where it's 10 feet clear underneath now to meet. And I'm using the word 10 feet as literal. where we're going to be 14 feet to the underside of the finished floor based on FEMA requirement. So it became a catch-22. We couldn't do the addition based on the value, based on, without meeting FEMA requirement. So we've done our best, really, to keep the character. I had a couple of two work sessions of the three, and we had good interaction, and I thought it went very well. So I think that's the gist of what I wanted to say, unless you have any questions.
Thank you. The BFE is are you all at BFE?
BFE
That's what I
plus
just
two.
want to clarify that. It's
Yes.
BFE plus 2, I'm sorry. Thank you.
He's at the minimum height.
Minimum. Okay, thanks.
I'm at the minimum. And the reason that I did the little semi-rendering, little watercolor, was to give you, and again, with all due respect, I did it because the black and white drawings are cold. So I just wanted to kind of let you all understand that we're not 12, 13, 14 feet out of the earth. We're 10. Okay.
It's a big difference, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. All right, great. Thank you. Let's start with Jeff Bishop and come work our way down.
Well, so spend some time looking at it. Obviously, we're interested in materials, we're interested in balance, we're interested in picking up the, as design review says, the language of the rest of the building, which has been done very, very well. As you said, it is a single family residence. The home is set way back. So any of that additional height seems to be diminished as you're on Lakeshore Drive, and even more so from people walking on the lake. A lot of our streets are very small, and the houses are very close to the sidewalk and very close to the street, and so you get out of your car and you look straight up. And so we're fighting that in some other cases that maybe you just heard, and it does matter. This is driven, by FEMA regulations. You kept it at the absolute minimum. I don't have to speak to all the details. I've read it thoroughly, and the details are very, very well done. They look like they want to they're doing everything in their power to just put a fine point on each element. As far as the carve-outs, I think in the back, you're not really moving the buildings, but you're actually carving the building out to allow, when it's raised, to virtually be in the same configuration.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so, that's thoughtful. So with that, I'll leave it. I don't have any other comments.
Right, thank you. Leah Quinn?
I'll pass for the time being.
I'm sorry?
I'll pass for the time being.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I can come back to you. Hans Solberger?
Well, it's checking all the boxes for me, and we went through 2 design review sessions with this. First and foremost, we have one of the premier buildings that we have on our lakefront that, is, it's a really tough scenario when we have to actually go up and elevate these. We're actually looking at 2 or 3 more that are coming in the near future that are probably going to have to do the same scenario. And but this is an example of how you're supposed to do it, based on the guidelines from the National Park Service and, what we've seen and what we've experienced, on other ones. This building this one and the 2 flanking it are ones that we use for our studio and staff as proper ways of approaching additions to historic houses, whether they're contributing or significant. I mean, it really is it checks all the boxes. So that part, I think you did really well. We talked about that some in the meetings, and it shows here. And it's going to be a good example for those other folks when they do elevate. They're also on the lakefront. We're going to see those soon. The addition is humble enough. I mean, you have to illustrate it. You have to give us some color and pizzazz and some life. It's way back. There was another comment that I saw earlier that, I couldn't believe that I hadn't thought of it, but it was, how much of the side view is it obstructing of the significantly historic house, and I was relieved to see that it was so far back that all those nice fenestrations that are on the side, you know, they're still there. Yeah, so it's doing it all for me. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Vaughn. Kara?
My question is, you chose to put the addition on the left as opposed to the rear. The guidelines regarding additions to buildings such as these are permissible as long as they minimally affect historic materials, are not readily visible, and are secondary in size and scale to the footprint of the original building. I think, and then that they maintain the dominance of the original building. I think the only one that is flagged for me is that it is readily visible. It's a left wing. Was there any consideration given to putting it further back so that you could see the perimeter of the dominant structure? I understand on the right-hand side, the addition they put on cuts off that right corner, just right past the window, and that you've done the same on the left. Was there any consideration to allowing the full view of that turn and having it set back and over a bit, or?
I do, yeah, a lot of things, the trees. And if you look at that tree, the trees are the most important thing to me. I actually met with Dr. Guillory, and he told us that the value of those trees, a 300-year-old tree, a 200-year-old tree, a 300-year-old tree, and he thinks a 400-year-old tree in the back. We kept completely off the trees. A, B, if you bought that home and needed to do an addition, I don't think you would want to walk down a 40, 50-foot loggia to get to an addition.
To go around the trees?
To go around, well, yeah.
So the trees are in the way of pushing it back, essentially, and that's the
Absolutely.
middle ground.
And
I was just gonna add, Karen, our chloro regulations require that any encroachment underneath the live oak tree get approval for planning and zoning. And if there's any possible way to not encroach into those trees, that is recommended to do. So this location is the optimal, location for the addition.
In light of the trees.
And yes, and Kara, if you don't mind, going to the elevation, I left the entire left side of that home visible.
I think not the
Right
corner.
there. You know what I mean?
So-
I pushed it as far back as I could.
My look was just that the corner, the perimeter of the structure, the outline of the dominant structure, you don't know what's behind it because the corner is cut off with the addition. So you don't see the back of the house. You don't see that left back corner. That was my
On the
thought.
right side?
On the right, I know that you don't, and on the left, it looks like you're building it to be similar, where it's just behind the window, but not clearing the structure. And that you don't, the eye from the side does not see where it turns, where it ends. It just, the addition just starts behind the last window. That was just my,
Okay.
what I flagged and looking at
In-
it,
in-
and I was wondering why it couldn't be back and over, but if you're telling me it's because of the live oak trees, I also like trees, and I
Okay.
think they're important, so
Thank you.
that's fine, sure.
Thank you, Karen. Rachel, additional comments, questions?
No comments.
Okay, great, okay, thanks. We can have, what?
Did you want to?
Oh, want to go back to Leah? Thanks. Okay, thank you, thanks, Mom. Comments and questions from the audience. Ms. Rohrbaugh, who could tell us, has a long elevation, an involved elevation story of her own, successful elevation story of her own, lives in the next block, but anyway, I'll let you, don't tell us the long elevation story, but they would love to hear your story at some point.
Yes, having been through this, it's painful to even look at. The two live oaks in the rear, in spite of the carve-out effort, those trees are not going to make it. Just general information, if they follow all the rules and regs, it doesn't matter. You can't disturb a live oak of that age with an elevation that completely encircles. They're not going to make it. I watched a tree that big size, even further away from my neighbor's house, and it did not survive the elevation. The tree was dead within 5 years. But that's not what I came up here to weep about. It was only part of it. When I worked with the study committee to form the Historic Commission and its regulations, one of the items that came up that I was absolutely insistent on including was the right of property owners of historic houses not to have to elevate to the full BFE +2 as the city requires. That exception is built in, and it is an option for all people with historic houses that don't want to go up to the full height. So I assume two reasons why the owners would want to consider the full elevation. And one of them could be the flood insurance, in which case I suggest they check with their insurance agent. If they only go up to BFE and not BFE +2, I dare say the difference in the insurance might prove to be minimal, that there's no insurance value in going up the extra 2 feet. The other reason they might consider wanting to take the entire structure up to BFE +2 is to make it uniform with the addition that's being planned. Folks, this is the tail wagging the dog. They have one of the most beautiful historic houses in town, and the architectural proportion of that house is perfect. I mean, to the inch. We used that very house as the model and the measurement when we chose to elevate ours and drew a line to the maximum height it would go up, knowing that the Creole box that they both started with was just about identical in the proportion on that house. Any fool can stand there and look at how beautiful it is. 3.5 feet will destroy that. I don't care what they try to do to it. And I just hate to see that. It doesn't make sense that the beautiful structure be disrupted because of a wind. My comment, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Roybauer. We appreciate that. And that's interesting information to remind us of BFE plus BFE +2. You want to add something to that?
Yes, so we do have an historic exemption. However, it has been the policy of the city that we do not give those exemptions unless the elevation would destroy the historic character of the structure. So the only structures that have been, for example, the Candy Bank, because it's a slab on grade structure and it's right on the property line, but structures that are already elevated above grade, we do not give that exemption for. The city participates in, and I'll let Lauren speak to this, to the CRS program, which is a community ratings program with FEMA, and it is detrimental to our rating that if we issue exemptions for properties throughout the district. We understand what we understand, and we believe me, there's a lot of times we think, we wish we could issue them, but getting these structures out of the floodway is really important, because if you issue these and buildings continue to get flood damage and they're inundated, you end up losing the structure altogether. So that's part of it as well.
Thank you. Lauren, you want to add any comments to that?
Yeah, I think just the biggest thing is currently, because Mandeville has decided to be a little bit more proactive with our regulation. FEMA does have a national standard that if you want to participate in the National Flood Insurance Program, have mortgages, you have to adopt basically flood regulation. Mandeville, on top of that, decided to do high regulatory standards of the additional 2 feet above the base flood. With that, there's all these additional, activities that the city is doing to not only promote positive thinking for higher flood risk in the future of, if that's climate change or just risk in general with water elevation differences, but with that, we are in a piggyback program, the CRS Community Rating System. And what that is it gives our residents discounts on flood insurance. So currently, the discounts in the city of Mandeville is all of our residents are getting a 20% discount on flood insurance. And this year, we actually got a better rating. So October 1st of this year, rather than a 20% discount, it's going to be a 25% discount for flood insurance. But what comes with that also is basically holding your hand to the fire and making sure that the community continues to enforce those higher standards by not giving variances to say, that it's okay to meet these lower standards. It's kind of, that's the deal that you kind of make. So you might have one challenging structure, but really you have to look at it as a full community of what could be detrimental of losing that discount for all of these residents as well. What Kara did state, there are sometimes historic exemptions, and a lot of the time you can, like Sweet Olive was one, that building is directly on the property line where the roof line, comes down.
The roof line comes over the sidewalk of the.
So that's a great example for you to just kind of think about of why, if that structure were to be elevated, of what we were stating earlier with the scale, the walkability, all of that. There are those very, very, very special cases that some of those exemptions have been given, but to be clear, since I have been here and Kara's been here, not one exemption on a historic structure has been given. So.
Thank you, and congratulations on the additional 5% on the community rating. I mean, that's great. And we all know what we're up against with the 0.2, and everybody's been reading about the challenges of flood insurance. I don't know whether Matt had addressed the possibility of leaving the original structure to BFE rather than BFE +2, but if you want to respond to that, because I think it's a pretty legitimate and an instructional thing for us. We're going to run into this again, and I think if there's any house that we would think about making, a possible exception for, it would be a significant structure like this. So I'm sure you all had those kind of discussions.
Sorry. Whoa. Lauren, when I met with Lauren and Kara, I really fought them, didn't I, about not raising the house. Number one, I was afraid to tell the client that I was doing what I was doing. Bubba and Donna Hines are the owners. They had already purchased the home and paid significant money for it. So with that said, I really did try even to work the addition where it would be, I was concerned architecturally about that, but I was just told that wasn't a possibility. It's almost like the dog's, the tail's wagging the dog. I have to follow FEMA requirements, but I want to follow the appropriateness to the house and the neighborhood. The only other thing I wanted to, did that answer the question? I don't know if it did.
Yeah.
I mean, Jeff, we really don't even that's not an option. I mean, we just don't do it it has to be extenuating circumstances, and I have to be able to justify why Ms. Rohrbauer had to elevate her house and how that's different from this one. I mean, when there's already structures that are elevated off the ground, it's very difficult to justify, which makes each of these houses different. And so we just made a policy that's just not, we're not going to give exemptions unless it's an extraordinary situation.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that the clients and the architect had that discussion in the dialogue.
We did.
And came to this conclusion as a result of all of that information. I'm not suggesting that, you all forgot about it or anything. I just want to make sure that, that part of the creative process had to happen at some point. And
Right.
certainly if I was the architect, I would be fighting for the existence of the original elevation of the structure. because it's so significant, and I'm certain that, you know, you're thinking, there's an architectural solution to this, whether it's this or whether it's push, you know, at that point in the process, you're thinking, man, what do I need to do to leave this thing? So I just wanted to make sure that all, you know, that stone had been
Yes.
turned, and you know,
Yeah.
and your clients have accepted the fact that this is
Yes,
the
sir.
direction that has to happen.
And
Right.
if, may I add anything else, or, the only other thing I was gonna add is it Mrs. Robel? The only thing I was gonna say is that I understand your opinion, and I respect that. And I really do, but the tree comment, Dr. Guidry was so impressed with the way, we're not changing the foundation, that's the interesting thing. We're leaving the existing footings in place. And what we're doing is we're just going from the slab and bringing it over away from the oak tree. We're not digging around it and putting new footings.
Could do
So-
an auger piles
I
or
mean, I'm just
something
like,
to
I
that
don't know what else to do, but I can't guarantee if you can, that the tree's gonna die in 5 years. So
Naturally, yeah.
I just get kind of passionate about it because I'm a tree guy. So, anyway, that's it. The last note would just be that the owners are so, significantly, polished architecturally. And the only thing I was gonna say is the home that they're leaving on Nassau Drive in Old Metairie was A. Haystown's last house. They get it. Oh, I just wanted to say that.
That's important.
They get it.
Yeah.
They really understand it. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right, I think, yeah, I think, where are we? Can we get a public comment? Okay. Yeah, if you'd like to come back up for, and then we'll go from there.
About the tree. Now, if he can keep the workers from running machines and trampling all over it, there may be hope. But I would like to pose a question since the issue has come up. The good news you're reporting is the flood insurance, which I believe Mandeville has one of the highest discounts in the state already, is going up another 5% in October. Now, that's going to happen whether or not this house is elevated, correct?
Yes.
So that's a done deal. We're already into Lanyap.
We have to maintain it. I mean, so now instead of every 5 years audit, we have an audit every 3 years. So it's a constant cycle of re-accreditation.
Does it not also include in the computation the more floodways and green space that the city creates or acquires adds to that formula? And so the built environment versus the green environment, that proportion helps our flood computation for the same purposes.
There's an element, there's an element, but it's not a this for that. And there's a total number of points that you can get with each category, and every category is weighted differently. So it's not necessarily because you did this, you get that, or didn't do this and you added this way, it doesn't evenly compute.
Well, I appreciate that the city and that planning is so diligent in this. You stated that you have adopted the policy in order to pursue these continued improvements in the flood insurance rates. What I pushed through was an ordinance, and I'm sorry, you can consult your attorney, but an ordinance trumps policy. These people have an option if they wish to take it, and if they do, it should be honored. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I think we've heard from comments from anybody. Anybody want to make a motion? Can I get a motion on this case? C 23063.
Motion to approve.
That's a motion to approve as submitted? Yes, is that a motion to approve as submitted? Okay. Motion by Mr. Solberger to approve as submitted.
I'll second that.
second by Ms. McGinnis. Further comments from the commission, further comments from the audience? All right.
I think it's a beautiful drawing. I think the addition is going to be lovely. You did a good job.
All right. Karen McGinnis,
4.
Rachel Vogeltan,
4.
Leah Quinn,
4.
Von Solberger,
4.
Jeff Bishop,
4.
and Jeff Bernard.
4.
All right, motion passes.
All right, thank you. Thank you all. Good luck with the project. And
Just a real quick reminder, the next meeting is July the 6th, so if you all could please look at your calendars and let me know if y'all are going to be out of town or not. I know it's a holiday weekend or a week, so we can notify anyone if we have to reschedule that meeting.
thank you. And then do we have any other updates or anything? I just want to remind people, especially our new members, that you've been sending us some NAPC emails of training opportunities, and we all have training requirements that we have to do. So, you know, we're half into the year. Some of those things are really, really good, and NAPC is a really good resource. And we also have things on the state level.